I'm going to let Sarah talk, and I'm so thrilled to have her here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity, and really appreciate all the outpouring of sympathy for the loss of Don Nelson. My father-in-law, my husband Nels Nelson, is here, and Kari Nelson, who some of you have met, even though she lives in Adams County, but she's right over the line. But she had her appendix taken out this week she was had a surprise appendix activity. So otherwise, I'm sure she would be here. But again, thanks so much. We live in the town of Newport, which is just east of Wisconsin Dells, and my husband and I farm. We had been dairy farming up until about 16 months ago. When did we sold the cows in April and May of 2024, and so part of what I want to talk to you all about is just kind of, what's facing farms and farm families in rural communities. I want to give you a little bit of context, because I think it's important when we see these sort of whack-a-mole fights that we have to do around land use, including large CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations. I think it's important to kind of understand what's facing people. And as Mary mentioned, I am the president of the Columbia County Farmers Union. I actually am missing the county president's meeting. I didn't have it in my calendar when I said yes to you, but I was really wanting to be here today. So I sent my vice president, Dave Mickelson, from the Poynette area in my stead. My husband and I are also members of the Family Farm Defenders. So we have other Family Farm Defender members here, Hiroshi and Arlene, and that's another organization that, the Farmers Union is a nonpartisan organization, but we do issue organizing, and we have lobbyists that go into the Capitol to lobby on behalf of farmers in rural communities for the issues that we care about. And one of the things that Farmers Union cares about, and I care about, is that I want more farms, not fewer farms. And so I want to kind of give you some background on kind of what the trends are we're seeing right now, what some of the reasons that we're seeing that, and then maybe some suggestions about, ways that we can really fight for the future of farming and our beautiful agricultural landscapes that we want to have. And I have some, fun facts to learn and tell about Columbia County agriculture, but, I just printed out the little handy 2-page census of agriculture, and can anybody guess the total dollar figure of agricultural sales for Columbia County?
4 million.
Oh, much higher. Add some zeros. He said 4 million.
A billion, that's a B.
Oh, you said billion. Okay, not that much. Okay, well, it's $326 million of agricultural products are produced right here in our county, which is pretty fascinating. We're actually 6th in the state for crops like corn and soybeans, which actually kind of surprised me. And the other thing is, there's 224,000 acres of cropland in our county, just alone. And as far as dairy farming is concerned, so I'm going to speak a little bit specifically about dairy farming, we have seen in this county and in the entire state, and actually in the region, this really massive loss of dairy farms. And I was looking at some of the numbers in the state of Wisconsin. For example, back in 2007, there were actually 5,600 farms that were in that 50 to 99 cow size, which is sort of that stereotypical family farm that we often think about. And now there's only 1,800 of that size farm. The interesting thing, as we've seen this real loss of the small and mid-sized farms here in this county and in the state, we have not seen a loss of the number of cows in the state. And we've actually seen an increase in the total amount of milk production. And that's because what we see is that as we lose the small and mid-size farm size, those cows are going into the larger and larger farms. And there's this incredible push for consolidated operations. And it's not just dairy, but actually dairy was one of the last men standing in a way, if you think about the way that egg producers, chicken producers, hog producers, that there was just this concentration. And the reason that we're seeing that is that the prices are too damn low. And so, that guy that runs for mayor in New York City that I think he wears a boot on his head, and it's the rent is too damn high, but the prices are too damn low. So farmers are not getting paid a price that covers their cost of production. And so what they're doing is they're having to make a choice. And unfortunately, it really is the choice of get big or get out, because there are limited opportunities. And so, even though we hate and we fight it when we hear USDA officials say, oh, you just got to get big or get out, but it is really a powerful force that is driving people out of the business of farming. So, the Nelson family is a very good example. So Nels milked cows his whole life, and maybe he'll milk some more again. But, I married Nels in 2007, and in 2002, the family had decided to go from 125 cows to 250 cows as a strategy so that Nels, his brother, and Don and Anita, his parents, could all try to make a living and draw a wage from the farm. So they doubled their herd. The university came out and said, you should milk 1,000 cows. And I was like, well, I would have never married you maybe if you were married. I thought we were huge enough. But what happened when we finally sold the cows more than a year ago, we were milking over 450 cows. And not because we were like, hey, this will be great, let's milk 450 cows. We were running for our lives on the treadmill to just try to eke out enough to pay the bank, to pay the cost of production. And that's what's happening to people across the county, across the state, the region, everything. And so, one of the things that we need to do is we have to fight for enforcement of antitrust and anti-monopoly laws. We already actually have the laws that could put pressure on the monopolists, bust up some of these big ag companies that are just crushing our farm families and our rural communities. And we need to do that at the federal level, and that's why we need to have great congresspeople and senators and presidents. We can push our attorney general here in the state, Josh Call, and I think that he could do more. He is a friend of farmers, and I appreciate that, but I was over in Minnesota during Farm Aid a couple months ago. You guys were there, and Keith Ellison, pretty strong guy, but he said specifically, I went and pushed for getting more money in my AG's budget so that I could specifically hire people in my office to just work on antitrust at the state level. And so I think that is something that we should really push for. So we need to deal with antitrust. The other thing we can do is we can really try to understand, are there ways that we can cut out some of the middlemen in these supply chains so that we can buy more directly from our farmers? Because that is the easiest way to get the money in the farmers' pockets. But Not everyone can do that. I mean, at 450 cows, we can't take our milk to the farmer's market. Like, would be a little messy, and it's actually not legal in this state to sell raw milk. So, that we need the direct markets, like the farmers markets, the CSAs. There's a lot of online stuff now. But we also need to think about how we can support farmers in the aggregated markets, or, like how we make sure that we have enough meat processors so there can be small scale beef and pork production in our towns and cities and countryside. We need to think about how we can strengthen the processing industry in all of the sectors. And Wisconsin has we still produce a lot of stuff here. If you compare us to Iowa and Illinois, where it's just like huge farms. So let's hold on to that. And so I really encourage people to, you can do things yourself as a consumer because you do have some power with your dollars, but we also need to come together and demand that we have better enforcement of the antitrust laws, and that we can make some demands on our policymakers and decision makers with things. But, as I pass the mic over to the brave folks that are fighting the CAFO expansions down in the southwest part of our county, we do have to play the whack-a-mole game. It is not okay with me that we are concentrating 5, 6, 7, 10,000 cows all in one place. It's not worth the risk. The manure storage, people will tell you, oh, we're so regulated. But one accident happens and you have 6,000 cows worth of poop in one place. That's just not okay. And in our state, we have systematically defunded the Department of Natural Resources. We have defanged any of the things that could be done with the Department of Ag and the Department of Natural Resources. And we have allowed our state decision makers to be afraid that, the farmers aren't going to like us if we do this. Well, guess what? Most farmers are not very excited at all about what's happening to push everybody to get big. And so we need to find ways that we can be in conversation with people that maybe they're not going to show up in a Democratic Party meeting, but they're definitely concerned about their communities, they're concerned about their water, they're concerned about the ability for them to farm in the future. And so one thing that I notice, I came out of the environmental activist community and then landed back in Wisconsin at my dad's family's farm by Cambria. And so I suddenly was then in a farm community where I had not grown up. And I definitely know that when we are faced with these terrible land uses that are coming in, whether they be large solar arrays, whether they be large confinement animal operations, that there is a tendency to do some moralizing around those people must be terrible people because they're trying to do that, and I'm going to go after those people individually. But this is a collective problem. This is, yes, there are probably some terrible people out there, but this is not what the solution is. And so I really would urge us to sort of listen to when people are making changes and trying to deal with the insane economic pressure that is crushing them, that we listen and we ask about, what would it take to come together with our communities and figure out ways that farmers can be paid a fair price. How can we come together and go to Madison and Washington, D.C. and demand that the Farm Bill actually have real policy mechanisms that will ensure that I, as a farmer, can get a price that covers my cost of production, and I don't have to get huge as my only option for that. And we can work with the companies that are selling us all this food and just say, look, it's not okay, I'm not, like, I would really encourage people to figure out if we can put pressure in the market spaces, because the market has a lot of power in the market actors. And so, how can we support our cooperative economy? We have a lot of co-ops in our history and in our economy here. So let's figure out how to come together around that. So, it is a tough fight, and I want to wrap my arms around the folks that are having to fight these local fights and learn together what we can do. I did have a chance to talk with someone from Midwest Environmental Advocates, and they do have like a guide for communities who are fighting CAFOs. And so I have a bunch of copies, so I'll leave them if folks are interested, but I don't want to distract you with all the deep information right now. And we can get more of these, and they're online. So, definitely take that. It is rough out there right now for farmers and rural communities. And when we lose, so like in Wisconsin, we produce a little over 30 billion pounds of milk a year, which is a lot of milk. We could do that with 12,500 100 cow dairies, or we could actually produce that same amount of milk with only 255,000 cow dairies. And to me, I'm a rural sociologist. That's devastating to think about, what you lose when you consolidate the economy in that way. I did the books with Don Nelson for about the last 6 years of the farm, and with a 450 cow dairy, I was writing checks for about $220,000 a month. I was pushing out that much money to workers, to all the supply people, the mechanics, the people that came to fix stuff, our neighbors that we bought extra hay from, but I was only bringing in $200,000 a month, and that was the problem. But you think about dairy farms, that's the thing about Wisconsin. Dairy farms are cash 365 days a year. And that is why we are just seeing this massive desertification going on in our rural communities. And so if we want our communities to be strong, we have to figure out how to rebuild a structure of the production and processing economy that's actually going to support people and not poison our neighbors' wells and not take too much risk with the manure. And so I think there are a lot of things going on, and I've talked way too long, so I'm going to be quiet now. But, there are things we can do. There's a lot of good work going on in Wisconsin to try to find alternative structures and solutions.